Thanks, David, for giving us a go-away present with the walkthrough of the release process for Ceph. Um, Without further ado, I'll let you take it away.
So I actually spent a lot of last week writing this document that anybody should be able to follow. But I'll just quickly summarize each section, I guess, and then I can I guess give a fake demo. Um, yeah, so there's just a couple things to be aware of. The signing machine used to be a virtual machine that lived in the Octo lab behind Red Hat's firewall, but um, there was a plea to move it to the Ceph lab so that non-Red Hatters could also participate in the release process if necessary. So it's a virtual machine. It's highly available. It lives on the Rev cluster that has been in place for 4 or 5+ years, something like that. So um, the GPG key was moved to like a hardware secured token a couple years ago. So in order to use the GPG key, you just need to know the pins. Those pins live in a text file on Magna001 in the Octo lab. Um, um, the pins should only be needed if the VM is restarted, however. So there's a GPG agent there, and I think the timeout is set to like a year or maybe 4 years or something, whatever the max is. Um, yeah, so the key itself should only need to be unlocked if the signing VM is rebooted for whatever reason. Um, and the purpose of the signing VM, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, is during the release process, all of the packages that get built get pushed to a Chakra node, and then the packages are pulled to the signing machine, signed by the release key, and then pushed to download.ceph.com. Yeah, so that's that. Um, there's another note here about new major releases. So this would be like an alphabetical release. So this will need to be done for Reef. But there's like a separate package that doesn't get built as part of a regular Ceph build. And I think what this package does is installs a repo file, I think. I think that's what the purpose of the Ceph release package is. But basically, once there is a Reef branch, Chakra will need to be made aware that Reef exists, sort of like this. And then Chakra will just need to be redeployed, and then this job will need to be run. You can see, yeah, it gets run like roughly once a year, which makes sense. So, yeah, so those are the two prerequisites before a Ceph build can happen. I don't fully understand what like Yuri's process is. But the current release process now is, once Yuri has tested everything and found a stopping point, that we're ready to cut a new release, he pushes that stopping point to the corresponding dash release branch, and then notifies me that the branch is ready to be built. There are a couple deviations from that. For example, if we're doing a hotfix release, what we would want to do instead is check out the most recent tag. So since 17.2.3 is the last Quincy release, we would check that out, cherry pick any hotfix commits on top of it, and then push that branch to Quincy-release. And it's sort of the same thing for a security release. The only difference is it would get pushed to the Ceph private repo instead of Ceph.git. I don't think. Um, yeah, I'll leave that as is. Um, yeah. So once Yuri notifies the build lead that it's time, that the branch is ready, one would just go to this Jenkins job. We'll use Quincy as an example. So you would put Quincy there. Tag should be checked, and then the next version is going to be 17.2.4. So that would go there. And then the only other thing that needs to be changed is the list of distros here. You could just hit build at this point, and the ones that we don't normally build packages for would fail, but it's cleaner, in my opinion, to specify it. So yeah, you can see here for Quincy, we build for Ubuntu Focal, which is 20, yep, 20.04, CentOS 8, CentOS 9, and then Debian Bullseye. So just copy that in there, and then hit build. There isn't currently like a notification or anything when the build finishes. I just kind of keep an eye on it, but once it's done, it will look like this. Nothing will be blinking anymore. It should be green. All that good stuff. If it's not done yet, it will look something like this, where you've got the blue progress bar and the spinny circle. Yeah, so those builds will take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, depending on how busy the other Jenkins builders are. Yeah, so what I normally do while those packages are building is do the release notes. There are 3 different types of release notes, I guess. There's the ones that go in Ceph.git. I've got the most recent version of Octopus here as an example. So there's ones that go in Ceph.git. These eventually end up on docs.ceph.com. And then there's the one for the website. These end up as a blog post. So if you go to ceph.io, news, blog, this is filing. This pull request here resulted in this blog post here. So, and then the third one is just writing like the email announcement. The instructions to write the release notes have historically always been on this wiki page on the tracker. It could move, I guess, but I sort of clarified it here. But yeah, all the commands are step by step exactly what to run. I guess I can show what the output would look like just because it's not there. It's important to always check out main because the release notes script itself only gets updated in main and doesn't get backported because it doesn't really need to. But we'll activate a virtual env and install dependencies. And then you would run this command here. I'm just going to modify it a bit. So the most recent version of Quincy was 17.2.3, and then we want to know the difference between the tip of Quincy or Quincy dash. It would be Quincy dash release, but just so you can see what the output looks like. So what this does is goes through using your GitHub API token and checks all of the pull requests that were merged between 17.2.3 and the tip of Quincy, and then it will spit out a nice markdown version of the changelog. And once that's done, you will create a pull request. The output will get put here like this. So this is eventually that command will return and look like this. Typically the component leads will add their own commits to this release notes pull request with any notable changes that are necessary. And then finally the email. So yeah, I normally just start a draft. From 17.2.4 dependency released, and then a couple things need to be replaced in here. Obviously the version, name here, and then I've got this little note here. If there's like a major change that should be mentioned there, it would go there, and then you can just see there's the other couple places that need to be fixed, like here. The notable changes from this pull request should go here, and then the version here needs to get changed, and then the SHA-1 needs to get pulled and then put there. So I normally just leave this as a draft and then wait for the release to finish. So so that's that. Once the Ceph build itself is done, you will end up with something that looks like this. So I know this is the SHA-1 for that release. And now I can, here's the release notes script output. So the next step is going to be signing the build. The first step is to pull it, and that's going to pull it from chakra.ceph.com, and the output will look like regular rsync output. This is going to be a little different since it's already pulled, but yeah, so that'll take, if I had to guess, I think it's about a half hour. And then once that is finished, time to sign it. I think Alfredo wrote this tool called Murphy. I think. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, my dog is not happy. Yeah, so the next step is going to be signing the actual Debian packages. This will use the GPG key that's on that Nitro key. This is what the output looks like. Not super interesting. And then the next step is signing the RPMs. Theoretically, this could all be automated. I'm just not super comfy with the idea of having a Jenkins agent running on this virtual machine. So that's why I haven't. But once that is all done, that also takes quite a bit of time signing. But once it's done, you just run sync push. And I'm not going to run sync push right now just because this Octopus repo is in a weird state since I haven't finished it. But so that will end up pushing the packages to, so here's an example of the latest Quincy. The Debian packages get pushed here. The RPM packages get pushed here. And then at the end of that sync push command, or the script, sorry, this symlink here gets updated. So people that have a repo file that still use packages. Don't need to like change the path or anything. So this is just a symlink that points back to the most recent version. Once that's done, it's time to build the containers. We have x86 containers and ARM64 containers. This job doesn't take any parameters. You just hit build now. What the job does is checks download.ceph.com if there's a new version, and if there is, it will build a container based on it. And then those containers end up on key.io. So you can see here 15.2.17 was the most recent upstream release. So that is the last container that got pushed. And then, yeah, the last step is just announcing. I normally make sure that the Ceph.io pull request is merged before sending the email, just because the email links to Ceph.io here. And then, yeah, the release notes PR can be merged sort of whenever, but hopefully, around the same time. But usually some review goes on even after the build is done, in my experience. But yeah, that's the process. Any questions?
Yeah, David. So if something goes wrong, what types of things do you see happen, and generally what's involved with fixing them? Like Jenkins issues or anything like that?
Um, I don't frequently see things go wrong. If I go look at these, I believe these failed. Yeah, so this is like CentOS 9, and this failed because I tried to build CentOS 9 packages, but it was at a point, the Quincy branch was at a point where, or I tried to build 17.2.3 for Quincy, but there were things merged into Quincy after 17.2.3 that are necessary to build CentOS 9 packages. So the next version of Quincy should have a CentOS 9 release. But yeah, typically I don't see things go wrong. It's a super lengthy, like many manual steps process. Like you can see most of these are green. I'm just trying to jog my memory and see. Oh, right, yeah. So when I changed the process to use a different use like the dash release branch, all of these failed builds were from then. So that's why there's a bunch of red and black down there. But I'm trying to think of like what could go wrong, but there really isn't a lot.
What would you do
Usually
if
it's just something
like
got
one of the
missed.
distros failed?
Sorry?
What would you do if like one of the distros failed, like say Debian didn't build for some reason?
Yeah, I would go check and see what it looked like. So if I go here, you get this pretty matrix of everything. And let's say the Bionic build failed. I would just go check the console output and see what went wrong. That sort of thing, I guess I don't know if that's considered tribal knowledge or just experience or what, but based on whatever happened in the build, would determine who I would reach out to. Like if the build failed super early, like somewhere around here, for example, I would know that's probably like something infrastructure related, and something that the build lead or I would need to fix. If it was a compilation error, I would try to sort of figure out which component it was breaking during. So like if it was RGW, I would reach out to the RGW lead, for example. But yeah, you sort of just can tell after a while where in the build like, how do I say this? You can sort of tell eventually like what's a compilation error and what's not. And typically, if it's not a compilation error, it's my role's responsibility to fix it.
And to recover from that, can you like retrigger just the build on that single distro, or do you need to kind of restart the process again?
Yeah, good question. Yes. Yeah, so you would go back to the Ceph job. And then you would just uncheck tag is the difference. If you keep tag checked, that's going to change the SHA-1 of the version commit. So as long as nothing has been pushed to download.ceph.com, it doesn't really matter. The version commit gets removed and re-added. But yeah, if you just wanted to do one, you would just keep tag unchecked and then replace the distros with whichever one broke. And then if you only need one architecture, you can get rid of ARM2, for example.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I'm not sure these three do anything. These three or this one do anything. They're sort of relics from when Alfredo wrote the job. They're not harming anything in being in there though, and their defaults are off anyways. So
What's involved with adding another picture, David? I doubt it's as simple as just adding another like MIPS or something, right? That would, I think we would have to change the CMake file, I assume, but
adding another architecture, yeah, I don't know, to be honest. So when we cut a new alphabetical Ceph release, what I typically do is just go into the Ceph-build repo, which is where all of the Jenkins jobs file definitions are, and just grep for Quincy, and then check each and every one of those files, and then then Reef will get added above or below or next to wherever it needs to. So that's probably what I would do if we were adding a new architecture is grep for ARM or AAArch64 in the Ceph build and Ceph.git repos. Yeah, I wasn't involved very much in adding ARM, so I don't recall.
yeah, that's all right. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we'll have to do that, but at least right now I'm not aware of any plans to add architectures.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it would be very fun, but
Yeah.
One thing that's come up lately is the idea of maybe doing a like development release again, like we used to a few years back. Just tagging things as like 17 or 18 or 19.1 dot something. Would that be the same process, just changing the tag ID?
yeah, and then I would just leave tag unchecked, and then yeah, the version can be whatever you want. I think as long as tag is left unchecked, I'm just trying to look at what the Jenkins job does again. We used to have to like manually create the tags and push them, but that's all automated now with the releasing from a dash release branch. Right, yeah. So I don't think that even gets called. Tag is right. Yeah. So the on the back end of this, what happens when this job gets started is there is a Ceph-releases repo, and it's basically a mirror of the Ceph repo. You can see here it's private, but what happens is the version commit gets created, and when I say version commit, this is what I'm talking about. This is all that happens really in the version commit is this gets bumped and then DCH automatically adds this. But so what happens is at the very beginning of the job, the version commit gets created and then pushed to the Ceph releases repo. And then as long as the build is successful, that this version commit will get opened as a pull request against the Quincy branch automatically. But you can see here, as long as tag is not checked, then that part doesn't happen. So the version commit would get pushed to the Ceph releases branch. So if you wanted to do like an RC release, for example, the version commit would get pushed here. But the next time you ran it, it would overwrite the tag. If you wanted to reuse the same number, if you didn't, then it would just be another version commit.
All right, thank you, David. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a quick question, please. About new dependencies that we need to include, but they're not available in any distribution yet. So usually we'll check if they're available in Apple, and if not, we'll have them built and available in a Copper repo, and then it will be available in the containerized deployments. But is there any way to make them available in the non-containerized deployments?
I feel like this is like an age-old conversation that has continuously gone in circles. I remember specifically Alfredo saying something along the lines of, we don't want to get into the business of building and signing packages that are dependencies that like we didn't write. I think so. What we've done historically is like when CentOS 8 or RHEL 8, whichever one was first, came out. You know, we obviously hit a bunch of like Python 3 dependencies that didn't exist, and Ken Dreyer and Justin, I'm gonna murder your last name. I'm sorry, Karatzis, built the packages and then pushed them to the Fedora build system. And then we would just sort of go around and thumbs up those packages, which automatically, I think, puts them into EPEL. So that is what we would do for an RPM build. I don't recall a scenario where there was a new dependency that we needed for an Ubuntu-based build, and it wasn't available. I think it's more common with RPMs. Did that answer your question? I realize I just rambled a lot.
Sort of.
So I think if you're missing a dependency, your best bet is to try to get it into EPEL. And I don't have the documentation handy on how to do that, but I know we've done it.
And if we cannot get it to EPEL, we basically need to have it in a Copper repository until it is available, either in EPEL or in the main distribution.
Yeah, so are you talking about runtime or build time dependencies?
Runtime.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it will be interesting to discuss both in case in the future we need them.
Sure. Yeah. So with build time, it's easier. So we have historically always kept. I'm going to share my screen again. We have historically always kept what's like a lab extras repo, and this is something that I have maintained. Embarrass me like this. Here we go. I think I have something weird in DNS mask that doesn't like this host name. But yeah, so historically we've had like a lab extras repo. This is used for dependencies that are not in EPEL or any of like the regular repos, but these are only build time, and then like QA suite packages. So these all were built by Kifu, and then I pushed them here. The process to do that is documented here. Not there. Here we go. Yeah, so once the packages get built, it's basically just a matter of rsyncing them to the appropriate directory, and then
David, I'm going to stop you. Are you working on a different screen? Because we don't see what you're doing.
Oh.
I can see that. I can see your screen.
I can see it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, right now I'm seeing a Jenkins page. It sounds like you're working on something else.
Yeah, I've got the wiki pulled up. I'll just share the link instead. Yeah, so there's a lab extras repo. So these were manually built and then pushed here. There may be newer versions of these in EPEL, and if that is the case, then those get installed instead, and these aren't used. So I'm sure you guys saw the installing Ceph-test on the test nodes has been failing the past couple days, and that was because they removed the XML Starlet package from the base OS repo. Super not helpfully. It is going to be in rel 8.7, and I don't remember what CentOS equivalent, but they're in the process of getting it re-added back to a different repo. But anyway, in the meantime, I just they did build XML Starlet, I think today. So what I did is downloaded it and pushed it to Lab Extras so that we can continue testing. Just as another example of a type of package that would go here. But yeah, as far as like runtime dependencies, if they're not available in another repo, like we can't encourage people to enable copper repos, you know, like I think that goes too far. In my opinion.
Yeah, so that will make it available only for containerized deployments where we can use it when we build.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, David, for the walkthrough. We're all sad to see you go, but good luck in your new ventures.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye all.
Thanks, David. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.